and welcome back to yet another episode of Perf Podcast, Athlete Things. I'm Bobby Tan from Perf Promotion, and joining us today as our guest speaker, we have Tom Chaplin. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good mate. How are you?
I'm good too, myself, thank you. So, Tom has been coached by Kelly from Perth since 2021 and recently competed at the Australian Powerlifting Alliance 2024 Nationals. He placed third while totaling the same as first and second place. And that was easily the highlight of the weekend because it was very exciting. And the top five had just over a little 10 kg between each other. So just to give a bit of context about Tom, he has been competing for a very long time, since 2021, and then he went to Worlds as 105 in 2022 in South Africa. So, Tom, how has your first Worlds experience been like?
South Africa was awesome, mate. It was a privilege to get the opportunity to go over there, but it was amazing. It was I guess the sort of pivotal point that I decided, this is where I want to be. Like I want to be on this world stage again, surrounded by those high level athletes. It was really inspiring, and I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just different when you see them up close, in a right?
No, mate, I know. You go from seeing, all these athletes on Instagram,
Yeah,
putting up these big numbers, and then you're sharing a platform with them. It's great, but it also makes it more real as well and attainable.
yeah.
So,
So, how was your prep leading up to Worlds?
yeah, it was good, mate. Like that's a while ago now, but look, I felt like I was just sort of finding my legs in terms of. I felt like I was a brand new, like a beginner powerlifter again. Um, I've been competing a long time. Did my first comp in 2014, but that prep was, I guess, a big mental shift in terms of, you know what, I actually want to give this a red hot crack and try and get on the international stage again after that South African meet and really cement myself as one of Australia's top powerlifters.
That's an awesome goal right there, man. So, how would you say your mindset has shifted pre-Worlds and post-Worlds?
Um, I think I started taking things a lot more seriously. Like throughout my, I guess, competition history and my training history, I guess I've always put an emphasis on putting performance first and fueling my performance with my nutrition and adequate sleep and improving everything I can to try and get the most out of myself at meets. But the big mental shift going into that world's prep was around intent and execution, which were things that I think had fallen to the wayside a bit prior to that meet, or just I hadn't put at the forefront of my training. Um, a lot of my training prior was just centered around pushing myself as hard as I could, but things would get sloppy. Execution wouldn't happen. I'd miss lifts. Lifts would be variable. Like I'd go into, a high percentage work, 50-50 as to whether I was going to be able to complete the prescribed reps or whatnot. And that prep, I was able to obviously had a really good structure to follow with Kelly's programming and mentoring. Was able to sort of hone in that training intensity more towards execution. And, there were a group of us who were prepping around the same time. Like I was prepping with Stevie and Sammy and Brody. And that really made things a lot easier because we all just had that one goal of just we want to, build execution into our training. So yeah, that's really what changed, mate. Was more focusing on execution.
It's great. And speaking of execution, there is the APU nets after that, where you added 50 kilos to your total.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that was just an amazing performance. You did fell short, just a little, against Michael. And
And
how would
Sam.
you say that? Um, how would you say that your execution has improved since Worlds in that short turnaround time for nets?
Um, oh well, I've had a few meets in between then to practice that execution. Um, but I just feel a lot more confident on the platform now. Whereas once upon a time, that was probably the most nervous part of my meet prep was standing on that platform in front of everyone. Am I going to be able to execute this lift? Whereas now, I draw confidence from the platform, and I just feel at home on the platform. So it really, if I focus on that execution and intent in my training and throughout the prep, um, make sure I don't do anything silly in terms of, putting something on the bar during the prep that I shouldn't be. Um, I just feel at home on the platform and nice and calm, which has been a massive shift over the last 3 years with Kel. So yeah, that's been the
It's
big
great.
change.
Yeah. So just double backing, would you say that you were just as confident in South Africa as you were at Nationals in 2022?
No, no, I was shit scared at South Africa. I was trembling when I was going on that platform. I was thinking, what am I doing here? Like, this is crazy. Um, and then as going into 2022 nationals against Michael, I was confident that day. Like, I was just enjoying that prep. I just really enjoyed that prep and that lead up to that particular nationals. I knew that it would be a big reach for me to push him, and like that was evident in the results. He still totaled, I think it was 40 kilos more than me or something like that at that particular nationals. Um, but I felt as though I was toe to toe with him the whole time, just because I was mentally switched on and all in on wanting to push myself to try and maybe win. Um, Whereas in South Africa, like I said earlier, I felt like a beginner again. I just felt like I was Bambi out there. I might have looked confident, but I was shit scared underneath.
It's great. It feels. How does it feel to be a beginner again?
Oh, it felt good. It's like born again, mate. So felt good.
Spotting the barbell for the first time.
Yeah, yeah. I remember actually on one of those taper sessions I had in South Africa, and Brody would be able to attest to this, was we were doing, I think, our last or the deadlift singles during the taper week there. And I set up at the bar in the warm up room, and I've just completely forgot how I'd grip the bar. Like what hand was underhand, what hand was overhand. I couldn't figure it out. So that highlights the nervousness of the week that was South Africa.
Was that resolved on meet day?
Yeah, it did go on by
All
meat day.
right, that's great. So Worlds was your first international?
Yeah, yeah, that was my first
Great.
international.
And we'll be moving on to your second international call, slightly down under in New Zealand, Commonwealth's 2022. So
Yeah.
you did get gold overall, which was wonderful.
Oh, mate.
You also PB'd your total, right?
Yeah, PB'd my total. I think at South Africa I was totaled 757, and then at nationals that year was 777, and then I went 782 at Toms. So
Yeah, and were you going head to head against anyone in Commonwealth.
At Commonwealth, yeah, I was going against Maui,
Yeah.
the reigning champ in New Zealand.
So, how did it feel like in an international comp that you had huge stakes and the pressure was on you to execute?
Yeah, look, I was pretty nervous for that comp as well. You know, traveling for another international meet. This time, I had more expectation on myself because, well, because of that nationals prep, and I sort of put that pressure on myself to do. Oh, this is I want to be an international athlete and represent Australia. So I did go into that meet with a bit more expectation or self expectation, and that led to nerves. But overall, I I don't know. I didn't even think about winning until that last pull where I had to pull 300 to win, which a lot of people know 300 has been historically for me just a number that makes me come unstuck. So the pressure was on, but I was able to do it, and that was a big turning point for my deadlift. To know that I can back my deadlift when needed, and yeah, that sort of flowed into the following meet in Newcastle in May that year. So, but yeah, going head to head overall against Mary was awesome, and just being able to be in the fight to try and win that and then end up winning was an amazing achievement, an amazing experience, and I loved it, mate.
Yeah, and at an international comp, no less.
That's right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
feels good.
It does feel
So,
good.
yeah, how would you say that your mindset has shifted from nationals to after Commonwealths?
Oh well, look, the Commonwealth certainly helped solidify the fact that what I can do this. I can execute when needed. I can hit those lifts under pressure. Um, and it just helped re-solidify. You know what, I do want to be on this platform on an international stage. Um, I want to work towards getting back to the world stage, and it was like a snowball effect with my mentality of I want to push for this. I really do want to push for this, and not only push myself, but also let's get the whole of Australia the standard up. That's the standard in Australia higher. Um, so that we can have nationals like the nationals just gone, where you've got 5 people in the 105s totaling over 800 kilos. You've got 83s totaling near 800 kilos, 74s totaling 10 times body weight. It's trying to get that standard across the board higher, and those comps, Worlds in South Africa, Nats 2022, and Commonwealths really just solidified. Let's raise this standard, not only my standard, but the Australian standard. And that's what I've been putting as the basis of my training ever since.
That's great. Would you say that you were more locked in? Because after Nationals 2022, I would assume that you were setting your eyes on Lithuania already. Since,
Um, yeah, I was, yeah, because I'd fallen short of going to Malta.
yeah,
Yeah, and Lithuania. Yeah, definitely. It was the same sort of mindset just continued to evolve, I suppose. Of let's get on that world stage. Lithuania is the next goal now after falling short of Malta,
yeah,
and even in that, my performance at nationals in 2022, like it was I was proud of it in terms of what I'd been able to do since South Africa and since Worlds in South Africa. But I still knew that total and that level of lifting was still quite a fair way short of what it would what it should be on the world stage, as a 105. So I knew that there was work to be done, and I was kind of thankful that I had quite a large period of time now to really dedicate towards getting that total higher. Um, and so at that point, that's where I was at. Well, I need to put some work in here over the next 12 plus months to really push towards getting an Australian soft suit and getting to Lithuania at that time.
Yeah. I remember seeing your caption when you did get second at nationals, and I remember that you had plans to go to Lithuania, and in my head I was like, "Where's Lithuania?" And then I had to search up the IPM website, and yeah, I realized that was where Worlds was held this year, and I was thinking to myself, "Yeah, this guy's really forward thinking."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's the stage that I want to be competing on, and
yeah,
so even now, unfortunately, not going to Lithuania, but got very very close and put myself in a position to potentially go.
yeah,
But yeah, so now it's road towards Germany next year.
yeah. That's great. So ever since Commonwealths, now moving to the competition year of 2023, we did see you compete twice. Once for your state qualifier in Newcastle,
Yep.
and once at States. And you did add a whopping 25 kilos to your total. How was how did your program with Kelly change since 2022? Like, what were your takeaways programming wise? And how did you manage to sort of burst? Because you did mention that you were stuck in the 300 range for deadlifts.
Mm.
Then 2023 was also the time where you squatted 300 for the first time on platform. You
Yep.
also benched 200 for the first time in the platform. So, what was the breakthrough since Commonwealths that made you add 25 kilos to your total?
Well, one of excluding programming, I did go through um, sort of a big calorie surplus over that period between December Commonwealths and then May Newcastle, where I sort of ate myself up to 109, 110, which that really did. That allowed me to add more workload to my training over that period, and that was the goal. With that was let's eat up, put on a few kilos, and then just add more workload. And the big thing for my squat um, was centered around adding in a week zero throughout my programming so that I could push the rest of the weeks a bit harder with my singles and my back downs. That week zero really allowed me just to, I guess, recoup and rest the nervous system a lot too, and then rip in the following week and allow me to push momentum program to program for my squat. And then for my bench, we went from 4 days a week to 5 days, so adding that extra day in added a bit more workload. And then I was also I pushed my high rep ranges in my bench, so I was pushing sets of 7, sets of 6 that I hadn't pushed in the past, and that yielded really good results there. And then for my pulls, I really don't think my pulls got better. I pulled 307 in Newcastle in May, but I was probably still capable of doing near that at Commonwealths. Yeah, 5-6 months before that. I really don't think my pulls came to the surface until post Newcastle and in the lead up to States, where again I pushed similar to my bench. I just pushed more rep work. We have trialed a heap of things for my deadlifting twice a week. Putting in pause deadlifts one day or reps one day, and then a primary day, and then adding in RDLs, that sort of thing. And it was just too much. We stripped it back to one main day a week, and then some heel elevated RDLs to get me out of my heels when I was pulling, and that allowed me to then push my rep work with my deadlift, and that really shot it up going into states towards the back end of 2023. So 2023 was just a lot of experimenting with different levels of workload across the board for squat, bench, and deadlift, and then also coming to the realization that if I actually take a bit of work out of my deadlift volume throughout the week, I was able to express my strength more throughout a block or throughout multiple blocks. Those were the biggest changes in my programming throughout that period. And then also that helped with going through a calorie surplus for a 4 or 5 month period there leading into Newcastle. Yeah.
Yeah, so less is more, right?
Less is more, mate. Well, for my deadlift, less is more. And then, yeah, for my squat, more is more actually for my squat.
Yeah, for bench as well, since you did increase your frequency to 5.
Yes, that's right. That's only been like we held that for all of 2023, and that yielded some good results on my bench. But we've recently dropped back down to 4 days because I think that it's a bit too much now.
Right. So now less is more too.
Less is more too with the bench. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so your competitions in 2023, they can be seen as, I guess, how do I put it? Do you feel like there was less pressure going into Newcastle and States compared to like Worlds and Commonwealths?
Oh, yeah, big time.
Yeah,
Especially Newcastle. Newcastle, I was just going down to a local meet.
yeah,
It was
exactly.
good to just go into a meet with. I didn't have to make weight. There was no fiddling around with doing that throughout taper week. It was just another training day. I flew down to Newcastle to do an SBD day, so that was great.
Yeah,
It took the pressure off a bit, and then going to states, states was a little bit higher because I guess there were some competitors going into states that I knew I'd have to show up for.
yeah,
Murdad being one of them,
yeah.
and then also I knew that New South Wales states had gone 2 weeks prior to that, so there was also a standard I wanted to uphold and make sure that I was still in the conversations for who's going to be competitive at 2024 Nats.
It's awesome. So since you felt that there was less pressure in Newcastle and States compared to your meets done in 2022, how would you say that your mindset has changed for those competitions in the competition year in 2023?
Um, Look, there was less pressure externally through competitors in 2023, but I still had the same pressure internally through self expectation, which, if there was a negative to come from that World's prep and that Commonwealth's prep, it was probably that. Like, I decided that I wanted to dedicate the next few years to pushing myself to be an international athlete. But then that self expectation almost became a bit catastrophic throughout 2023. I was still able to perform and still able to, yes, you mate, and I was still able to, um, put kilos on my total, but every prep, like that Newcastle prep, and then going to states became more of a mental challenge. Sort of keeping it together throughout the preps because I was putting all this self expectation on myself. So I wouldn't say that the pressure external, like the pressure externally was less, but the pressure internally was probably more.
Right.
Um, and that sort of led to the end of 2023, me going, do I want to actually do this, or I came to a bit of a crossroads with this has taken a lot from me. Um, I really had this to just sit down over a few weeks and just ponder on, you know, why am I training? Why am I pushing myself like this? Just really ask myself these questions to reaffirm my motivation and that direction to go to worlds. And sort of, is that something that I really want to do? And obviously, I came to the conclusion, yes, it is. But I took that self expectation and threw it in the bin, mate. You don't need that. So, yeah. Um, and then, yeah, going into 2024 Nats, that was a blessing.
Right. What was the key defining moment for you that, yes, this is what I want to do?
Um, well, it like it's I'm a thinker, mate, which is a blessing and a curse. But the defining moment was, why did I first start training? Why did I first start competing? Going right back to the roots of first walking into a gym and lifting up a barbell. And for me personally, it was just training gave me an outlet, or not even an outlet. It was somewhere where I could go and better myself every day, or whenever I was at the gym. That was a place for me to. I knew that going into that time that I dedicated towards training, that was a place and a time that I could better myself. Um, and that also flowed into just the everyday life. It gave me discipline. It allowed me to, manage a calendar, stick to a routine, apply myself, all those traits that can flow into everyday life. That's why I started training, and that's what got me hooked, because it just drove me to be a better version of myself. And that's what I came back to throughout my time, just sitting and thinking as to whether I want to continue to do this. And that's what the conclusion I came to was this sport, or just going to the gym, and this sport has allowed me to better myself every day, and I want to continue to do that. And that has got me to this point, and I know it can get me further.
Well, that was great, man. So, Tom, now that you had so much time to experiment in 2023, how was your prep and how did you come to actualize that massive 822.5 total at Nationals where you PB'd by like 15 kilos?
It was still flowing on from those things we were talking about earlier about execution and intent. Execution and intent is something that grew throughout 2022 and 2023 in my training, and then couple that with taking away the self expectation in 2023, or towards the back end of 2023. That just enabled me to bring back, as Kelly terms it, the fun in my training. And so just being able to go into my sessions and just focus on, it's a privilege to be here today. It's a privilege to be able to train and to push myself and to enjoy this time that I have here. That enabled me to just have this sort of flow that led into nationals mentally, and it just built this confidence, this unwavering confidence. Um, it, I got to thank Kelly too throughout that period, because there was a time during like the back end of 2023 where she had a pretty stern conversation with me about, we're not going to go through another prep with this self expectation that you're putting on your training, and just essentially just said, sort your shit out, go have some time and just sort your shit out, and come back and next week, and we'll change your mindset on your training. Have a think about what you're doing, and sort your shit out. And I did, and that enabled me to have this flow going into nationals that led to the result that happened.
How how would you rate your performance at nationals? Like Sam and Michael aside, I think since Worlds you added almost 100 kilos to your total, and like you said, your intent, your confidence, it has all blown up since 2022. Feels like you're a different human being. How would you rate your
Mm.
performance that made that 822.5?
Yeah, look, results aside, I that performance for me was the best I've ever performed on the platform. Mentally, I was just so proud of how I'd conducted myself. Um, I just had a good time on the platform. I really loved being able to express my strength in that place, and um, I, I loved the competitive nature that was the competition. But yeah, rating that performance, it's at the top in terms of the competitions that I've done so far. Yeah, right at the top.
It's great, man. I can't wait to see more from you. So 850 is next.
850 is definitely the goal.
Yeah,
I'm trying to steer 850 is the next, I guess, marker. And I know that I'm capable of that, and that's what I'll be pushing towards for the next 12 months. So again, I've got another big stretch of time here that I can put towards just refining my craft, and I know that I'm capable of a lot more. And I can't wait to express that.
it's great. I can't wait to see that 850 from you. So, what were your key takeaways and reflections from Nationals 2024?
Um, the key takeaways was I was like I said, I was happy with how I performed mentally, and I know that I'm good for pressure situations. I like pressure situations. If I need to squat something to stay in the fight, or if I need to bench something to stay in the fight, or if I need to pull to get into first or something like that, I know that I'm good for it, and I like that challenge. I can step up to the mark. Um, and I feel like my third bench was a good test of that. Was I missed my second from my elbows being locked or something like that, and had to make a decision of whether to go up or repeat my second. We went up for my third bench and got it. Um, that was a good test, and I really enjoyed that. So that's a big takeaway. I know I can perform. Another takeaway is I'd like to get better at refining how many kilos I have in the tank from, say, a second attempt going into a third, and continuing to push the limits there a bit more. So I know I had a bit more in my squat and my deadlift, and I just want to keep practicing, trying to just refine those numbers to get the most out of myself on the day strength wise.
Yeah, it's like you know your body the best, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, you do. It's just you still got to practice it,
Yeah, it's just how
over and
accurate
just
you're gonna be.
okay, but that's right. And if I
Yeah,
got 5 kilos here, I got 7.5. What's gonna push the limits too much, or it's just trying to get more accurate and refine that, which is what I'm looking
yeah,
forward to doing over the next 12 months.
it's great.
So,
So, last question from me. I know you said that you've set your eyes on Germany next year, but do you have any other plans for the future? Do you plan to compete again before nationals, just to refine your decisions and probably reinforce your intent and confidence or stuff like that?
mm. Yeah, I do. I'd like to have a little bit of time now, which is what I'm going to have to just have the looming pressure of a comp not be there. But I'm looking to compete in October. If I get the opportunity to compete at Oceanias over in Noumea, I'd really like to do that. That depends on what Sam and Michael are doing.
Yeah,
if I don't get to compete in Oceanias, then I'll look to do a local meet around that time, and then that'll lead into nationals. So yeah, short answer is yes. I will want to compete before nationals, um, just to continue to refine that craft on the platform.
So yeah, that's awesome. So that's all from me. And is there anything you'd like to say to your viewers at the before we end this episode?
Oh, not really. I just appreciate everyone's support, and I just want everyone to keep pushing the training, and just let's get this Australian standard higher. And we've got a really strong team heading to Lithuania, and probably our strongest team ever. So let's just continue to push that and get an even stronger team going to Germany next year, and get more athletes in the A group and more athletes on the podium at Worlds. Hopefully, some at Sheffield or World Games too. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure the Australian
Thank
team
you.
appreciates your well wishes, man. So thank you
Yeah,
so much for hopping on. Really appreciate it.
no worries, dude. Thanks for having me.
No worries. And we'll conclude this episode of Perf Podcast's Athlete Things. Thank you.